Welcome to On the Couch. Opening round is in the books. 5 games to dissect. And as always, joining me on the couch, Jordan Lewis, Jonathan Brown, Nathan Buckley, and the greatest player of all time, man who joined us in 2025 and has returned, the great lethal Lee Matthews. Lee, it's great to have you back on the couch for season 2026.
Thanks, Jack. Always good to be here with you guys. Brownie's body's a bit tall, makes me look like a midget, but that aside, I'm quite happy to be here.
He's been stretched.
We allowed to say midgets.
Well, we've said it twice now, so it seems like we are. All right,
Good
Lee.
to have you, mate.
It's great to have you, Lee. As it is, boys. Footy finally back.
Yeah.
We're excited, and Lee, we saw a really unique brand of footy, and the rule changes certainly having a big impact already early in season 2026.
Well, the big guys jumping at the ball tick. It looked better. I'm not sure if it made any difference to anything, to be honest, but it looks better than the blokes wrestling under the ball. The stand rule looked like it was well umpired and well played, I thought, early on. So the first 4 games, just outstanding. 30 games, a couple were blowouts. One was really close, obviously. But then we got to last night, the 5th game. Same rules. And it's a 20-goal just slugfest. So it just goes to show, maybe the 2 coaches last night, maybe their teams defended much better than the ones in the other 4 games, maybe that. But just wasn't a different look.
It was certainly dissect all of the 5 games, and you mentioned the final game, which we'll peel through soon. But, Geordie, explosive footy. It was... the AFL would be absolutely wrapped. The stars of the game and the explosive play of the game really shone out on the weekend.
Yeah, weather permitted. I think the weather was great across all 5 games over the weekend. But I think that's what you want. You want your A-graders having space and time to use out on the field. But I think in all games, I think... the overarching thought in my head was it was powerful football. It was clearly high scoring in most of the games, but to see the players run, carry, use their strengths, that's why the fans turn up, and they certainly got their money's worth.
I think we are a copycat league, aren't we? And Brisbane won on the back of some powerful, obviously they got a good midfield, some powerful ball movement last year. I think they did the year before as well. And Collingwood in 23 were pretty impressive the way they moved the ball. So it feels like it's moving that direction anyway. And then the rules have helped that. They've added another layer, especially the stand rule, haven't they? And obviously the boundary throw, not as many boundary throw-ins anymore. But it feels like that overlap handball has come into play a little bit more, Bucks.
Yeah, the league has definitely made the moves to try and make it harder to defend and to advantage teams that want to move the ball. So I think... if you want to be good in 2026, you've got to be able to move the ball really well, through the ground, but then you've also got to be able to connect when you get to the end of it. I think what we saw yesterday with St Kilda and Collingwood is 2 defences that wouldn't be drawn deep. They wouldn't allow themselves to be run away. And I think we saw that at different times over the weekend. The teams that sort of retreated were the teams that were exposed through the middle of the ground. So that's a heads up, I think, for how you need to defend. But I think the other thing is, yes, there are different types of football, and that's a good thing. Yep. Same set of rules, but different interpretations of the same thing, and I think that's what makes the game great.
Can I just ask you a question? Put your coach's hat on for a second. Has it been challenging for the coaches with these new rule changes, or do you think players adjust pretty quickly and coaches adjust?
Look, I think they adjust really quickly. I know they adjust really quickly. And if you're worth... If you're worth your weight, you're going to try and test the rules, aren't you? You're not just going to accept them and then be taken advantage of. We're trying to fudge them. You're trying to take advantage of them in any way that you possibly can. That is each of the coaches and each of the playing groups' responsibility. And that's what off-seasons are for, to maximise that.
I think importantly for the viewer that scoring is up at the moment, 2 goals on average from where it was last year. So exciting footy, and none more exciting than Saturday night, Brownie. Your team unfurling the back-to-back premiership flag in front of a big crowd at the Gabba, coming up against another really exciting team in the Bulldogs. And the Bulldogs come away from that game 5-point winners. And importantly for a Western Bulldogs side that struggled against the top 4 last year, Brownie, 0-5, they were able to get win number 1 in opening round against the best team in the country.
Oh, yeah, I was mightily impressed with them, especially 26 points down that 3rd quarter. They were hanging on for dear life, and Brisbane kicks the next 1 or 2 and nearly cracks an away team. So well done to them. This will be a great confidence booster for the season. It was a great game of footy. Credit to all the players out there because, difficult conditions always in South East Queensland this time of year. For them to run out to the finish line the way they did in an absolute cracker of a game. So pleasure to be there. And 2 genuine top 4 contenders. We know the Bulldogs didn't play last year. There was a lot of elements to the game. some impressive stuff at the Lions with the veterans, Lockie Neal, Charlie Cameron just to stand out. But some of the performances from the Bulldogs, obviously Ed Richards copped a lot of plaudits. He was magnificent. Bond kicked 3, even though, he wasn't his best display in the middle of the game. Still kicked 3 when he went forward. But some of the younger players for the Bulldogs really impressed me, the way they stuck in and hung out there.
Look, I've always been impressed with how the Bulldogs are coached. I think Bevo seems to make the most of what he's got. Now, he has got some guns, but I like the way that he brings and integrates role players into the side. I mean, Kennedy's been great since he came across. Butterick, in his first game, has a great influence off the back half, kicks a nice goal. Bailey Williams keeps getting moved around and finding different roles. Bramble comes into the mix. Riley West to find a want-to-be midfielder who finds a role as a hard-nosed forward, I think. And then not to mention the young blokes that have come through and they're all Australians. So it was a pretty impressive performance. And I think even their defensive strategies, I'll be keeping an eye on that. They're standing off a little bit. They've adjusted their defence to the stand rule and what we think might happen with faster offence. So watch this space. Some
big news to come out of the game from a Brisbane Lions aspect, Geordie, and I'll come to you because you're our tribunal. Well, you've been to the tribunal more than anyone. Actually, maybe Lee has.
You might as well go.
To be honest, but we'll come to you.
I never went much. What are you talking about?
MRO, Geordie, you're the MRO.
Imagine if the same rules were imposed.
Different era.
But they're not, Bucks. They're not. We know they're not. We know it doesn't matter.
We don't deal in hypotheticals here, Nathan.
But three really big MRO findings from the game, all centred around the back-to-back premiers, Brisbane. And, their captain, Harris Andrews, has been dealt with 3 weeks. He's been severe, high, careless for this hit on Artie Jones. Zach Bailey has already accepted his fate for this, errant swinging elbow on the boundary line here, which has got 1 week. And this one here from Darcy Gardner has been graded as medium, high and careless. And that has been given a week by Michael Christian and the MRO there. So let's pick through them. So we won't go through the Bailey one. He's already accepted his fate. But the Harris Andrew one's a fascinating case of where it comes out in the matrix. It's been graded severe, high and careless. And it was not a very good look. And certainly Artie Jones felt the full force of Harris Andrew's elbow.
Get that out of the game. Well, I think it's absolutely 3 weeks. Could have possibly been more. This is a bad look for the game. Whenever a player is on the ground, players have unbelievable awareness. He knows exactly where Artie Jones is. He even has a sneaky look. So a swinging arm is absolutely careless. And
are you happy with it being rated careless then? If you're suggesting that he knows where Artie Jones is and he throws an arm back,
what's the next level up?
Intentional.
Yeah.
Just clarify, throws arms back intentionally to hit him in the head.
Yeah,
you'll clarify that?
A strike's a strike, though,
Are you suggesting that he intentionally got him in the head?
Well, I think there's obviously he's not looking.
Yes or no?
And
I don't think he could understand where Artie Jones' level was.
He's going like that. He's not going.
Well, he doesn't know that Jones is actually going down to the ball. I think the swinging arm is deliberate. I don't think in any stretch that Harris Andrews thought he was going to collect him in the head.
The arm's going up.
I know that they've decided to.
If you choose to throw a punch, if you choose to swing an arm, then it's much like bumping, isn't it? Like if you bump them in the head.
If you choose to swing it, then you've got to be accountable to the outcomes, and he will be. But I'm not. I don't think for a moment that he was intending to hit him in the head.
No, I think I would agree with that. That's the point. But one of the things is, if for a careless action, you get 3 weeks. I mean, that's where maybe we've come to that, and you just got to protect the head, and the concussion makes it severe impact. So that's where the careless severe impact. But sometimes you think, like, what's kind of fair? What's justice? I would have thought he could have easily hit him in the chest, didn't he? Like, he threw his arm back.
But he didn't.
It's like a bad bump. You're not necessarily trying to hit the guy in the head, but it's a bad bump. You hit him in the head, you're going to get suspended, and that's what's going to happen in this case. But I'm not sure if it's a justice 3 weeks, even though the system says that's what he will get.
I think so. I think he knew where he was. His arm was swinging upwards and not like that. And it's an ugly look.
That will go to the MRO, or the tribunal, and they will see if that comes out as 3 weeks for the Brisbane Lions captain. And a very important piece to the puzzle, if Harris Andrews isn't to play, is Darcy Gardner, and he's been given a 1 week suspension for this hit on Aaron Norton. As I mentioned, it's been rated medium, high and careless. And I think this here is extremely lucky that it is only 1 week. At no point did he ever put eyes on the ball there or make a play for the ball. That was crass.
That argument, at least an argument, was it low or medium, the impact?
The medium impact.
No, that's what I'm saying. They've justified it as medium. There's a reasonable argument it was a low impact. So that's anyway, that's what they'll be
It's very important, though, because Garner and Andrew, so with Curnow and Logan McDonald, Joel Amati against Sydney Swans this week, they need one of them to get off. Otherwise, they're going to be playing undersized this week.
I think they've got a fair argument to argue that down to lower impact.
That'll be an interesting case, that one there, at the tribunal in the coming days. I've never done back-to-back, and you three have, and obviously Lee is a coach. How much do you watch players under the microscope when you've done back-to-back, and maybe some complacency starts to creep in, or do you become hyper-alert? Because I'm looking at a game on the weekend where the Lions, we all think they're the best team in the competition, then potentially daylight next. And Dane Zorko comes out and has 31 disposals and gets the plaudits for what he does offensively off half-back, but fundamentally, he's probably given up 3 goals through errors in this game, or even, I mean, the lack of effort there to get past Artie Jones early on in the game, and an important game as well, unfurling the flag in opening round, and that costs him a goal. Here at stoppage, no talk here between him and Ashcroft as well. His man gets out, and I just wonder at the moment if Dane Zorko is kick chasing, because that's where his plaudits and his pats on the back have come from, Brownie. Here poor defence as well from a couple of Brisbane's leaders, Zach Bailey as well, who's right next to Ed Richards here.
But isn't that the way Zorko plays? Oh, look, I thought he's outstanding, and I thought he gave Artie Jones a bake, because Artie Jones's numbers were quite low, and I know he's out there contributing and helping his team, but he clearly won that contest on the night. So
from an offensive point of view,
he death riding him a bit early there, like that's round one, and he would have been in the best handful of players on the ground, Dane Zorko, in terms of his impact and his ability to get the ball moving.
So we're hyper alert about them, and I think we're looking at them with a fine-tooth comb. Does that happen internally as well, or is it just brushed off as we were beaten by the Bulldogs, who might be a bit fresher than us?
Lee's perspective's interesting, because obviously you're in the same boat, Lee, where you're trying to get us home for a 3rd flag in a row. What's the coach's mindset when it comes to that?
Well, I mean, you do the review the same as you've done, probably Chris Fagan's done for the last 10 years in a way, that, OK, things like that, things that you've pointed out, OK, we've got to be careful that we don't fall into this bad habit. Sometimes things just happen on the game, but Dane Zorko's main role is as an attacking halfback, and therefore, he'd be thinking, my attack is my strength, not my shutdown. Like they've got other defenders who do the shutdown. So I don't think that necessarily means that the team's sort of belief or systems are different because of the 3 in a row. I mean, on Saturday night, they got beaten by a kick. They could have won by a kick. I mean, there wasn't much in the game. But
does that not highlight the importance of defending? I appreciate he starts at half-back, but
I don't disagree with you, because you're trying to get perfection. So you're trying to say to every player, we would like you to be perfect. And Dane Zorko, you've got to defend as well when it's your turn. I think, and if you point out something where he didn't, you think that'll probably be highlighted by at least the line coach.
You've got to be careful, mate. He likes to rip one in the lines early every year. So
I actually think it's a badge of honour, the fact that we watch them so closely. I watch them closer than any other team because we're all trying to pick a hole in them.
But they're not a super team. Last year they finished 3rd, and the year before that they finished 5th. They had a few good weeks at the end of September, so you win the premiership. You've got to be really careful, too much. I mean, I know it's the premiership, you get the cup, but the form in your last week or two, the form over the last 6 months is pretty critical. I mean, the last super team in my time was Essendon in 2000, when they only lost 1 game for the whole year. Every other, you weren't dominant where you just won every week. I mean, so it's a struggle, and they've got to know that it's a struggle.
I think if Charlie Cameron had taken one of those opportunities in the last quarter, probably not looking at those edits.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I reckon they might have been there. I think it would be all about balance, because you're going to give to get, especially with those attacking high half backers. You're going to give a little bit of the defensive stuff for what you get from the offence. And if the balance gets out of whack, well, then you need to have the change.
But even the Bulldogs in the review, they conceded 15 goals. So, I mean, and the Lions conceded 15-odd goals. So in the review say, we didn't defend well enough. I mean, we can't go out there thinking we're going to concede 15 goals and win. Sometimes you might, but, gee, you've got to be scoring well, don't you?
Well, I think we all look through those games as a fine-tooth comb. You certainly don't want to be playing your best footy in opening rounds. And Lee, one man who probably didn't have the best night, but has certainly been touted as the superstar of the future of the competition, is Sam Darcy. Interested to get your take on him at the moment.
Well, there's been a trend, I guess, over time where the big power forward, like the 200 centimetre, almost the ruckman forward, like there's not many of them, and Sam Darcy's 208 centimetres, but that player's really struggling. Like contested marks in the forward 50, each team only takes 2 or 3 a week. So a Sam Darcy, because at 208 centimetres, he's got to be pretty slow at ground level comparative to your normal runners, right? So he has to take a lot of marks. He played on Harris Andrews, and I was really interested to see how that would play out, and Harris Andrews got him, basically. And I'm not telling so much about Sam Darcy. I reckon he'll be a magnificent ruck forward, but I don't think he's going to be a magnificent forward. And that's partly because the whole industry, maybe it's the defensive mechanism, defensive structures, the ability of the spoiling defenders. Those big and I'm not talking about the running centre-half forward type players, the guys who play the big full forward type position, you know, they just are actually not dominating the game. Even the high-scoring game in the weekend, Ben King, he's one of those. He got 4, but most of them were ground level goals. They weren't actually big
leading or
marks.
easy leads.
All actually leading into the leading into space is the problem because there's not much space. Anyway, I just thought the Sam Darcy, when they're talking about he's going to be a dominant influence in the game, he might be, but I reckon he'd be better in another generation than the current one.
Are we worried, Brownie? It's the key forward mafia, Lee suggesting, and the numbers are showing as well that key forwards have struggled early on in the season in opening round. Is there? Do we need to bring the boys together and have a word?
It should be easy because the field will be more stretched out, and there should be more leading space. But
well, what's a part? So for him, let's say, Darcy, what would you see as a pass mark?
Because his second efforts, he kicked a couple of goals on the Saturday from second efforts, but basically 3 or 4 goals has to be your break-even point for your 208 centimetre forward.
That's 90 goals in a season. We haven't seen that for 15
But I'm saying
years.
because that's what you've got to do. You've got to be able to clunk marks, kick goals, and if you can't do that 3 or 4 times, you're just going to slow down your defensive forwards.
It's going to be a fascinating watch this year, Sam Darcy. Big numbers last year, contested marks and goals per game as well.
Yeah, two per game. That's
2.8,
that's what I'm saying.
2.8, close to 3.
That's little, isn't it? You've got to take more than that, surely, if you're going to dominate at that height.
It's going to be an interesting watch. Bucks, you're back in the coach's box for the first time, and certainly not the result you wanted up against the Gold Coast, losing by 56 points. At times, it got out to 85 points in the third quarter. What's been the fallout from what was a pretty disappointing performance from your boys are down at Geelong?
Yeah, no, you're right, mate. It's not one I want to dwell on that much, or that we want to
I've got 5 minutes here in the rundown for it, so we can...
I'll give you 5 seconds. No, we've done a review. Actually looked at a little bit of Fremantle at the end of it today, so we are looking forward already. But no, there's there was some outlier numbers in that performance for us, like the turnover scoring, a little bit of pressure around the ball. And we gave the ball back to them, world record 42 turnovers in our back half. So we shot ourselves in the foot quite a bit and fueled the Suns' press. But yeah, there's a few elements for us to work on.
Up close, you're only just recently back in the box. I mean, we were there live. They looked powerful, powerful.
Especially in the front half, weren't they?
In the front half, but across the ground, but particularly in the front half. Unfortunately, you're coaching the backs, but I was really taken aback by how powerful they were.
Yeah, no, we knew we were under no illusions of who we were going to come up against, and they've had some elite players for a long time. Miller and Anderson were 2 that we targeted. Petrarca was one that got off the hook against us. Humphreys started the game really well. We were relatively in the contest for the first 20 minutes, but they were able to hold sway, especially in the clinches. The ground ball through the midfield between the arcs. They were able to get a hold of us, and we're not the only team that they're going to do that to. They were as clean and hard inside as any team will be this year, and they were able to display that consistently throughout the first 3 quarters in particular.
Can we just look at Christian Petrarca? So we've got some of his positioning, his highlights. It was unbelievable. It was his highest rated game of his career, actually. So, and obviously he had that grand final for Melbourne in 21. So he played. Now, this is not new to him, this position of playing that sort of forward of the stoppages. He played a bit deeper at times, but it was sort of that attacking midfielder, if you want to call him that. And he was dynamic, wasn't he, with the 30-odd touches. He had 6 clearances, 3 goals. He had 10 inside 50, so was spotting targets. But that's going to be a really dangerous position, Bucks, for him all year if he gets that amount of space forward to the stoppage.
Yeah, well, what I'd suggest is all of these are contest forward, and it could look very different if you look after the contest itself. But the Suns were able to win those more often than not, and got from the inside to the outside. Even when we got the ball in our hands, they pressured really well in there. So if you're leaking forward, it's going to be good if you're winning those contests. It can be exposed the other way, but we weren't able to do that.
It's an incredible stat line there. You look at the two names that are above him are both club champions, and the captain of the football club, Gary Ablett and Noah Anderson, the fourth highest rated game from a Sun. It makes you wonder, Lee, about Melbourne and Christian Petrarca and the fallout of even Clayton Oliver coming out of there as well.
Well, they two together. Petrarca was outstanding and Oliver was outstanding, and they've just struggled at Melbourne the last year or two. So you got to it reflects badly on what Melbourne was. I don't know what they are now. That might be different, but what they were, those two players had become pedestrian, hadn't they? And then all of a sudden they've gone to new clubs and set the world on fire. It's only one round, I know, but nevertheless it reflects badly.
Is anyone more at fault then, Melbourne or the two players? Because they're a part of the culture and then they've left. And from all signs we've seen in Melbourne early is that they I think they're going to win more games potentially than they lose this year under Stephen King. Who would you place the blame on?
Well, that's a good question. All I'm saying is the Melbourne fans would be saying to themselves, watching Petrarca and Oliver, how come they weren't doing that for us last year? So it always just reflected glory and the reflected fault goes on to the Melbourne situation.
I think it's a little bit part system and setting up the player to prosper and off the back of what Brownie's saying. So a lot of the stuff that Brownie showed was Petrarca at stoppage, the ability to get forward. And I think we'll just show a little bit here on how the system allows the player, and you'll be very familiar with this system, allows the player to be able to perform and effectively catch the opposition out. So Petrarca starts in the midfield, and Miller you can just see there as the high half forward. So a couple of things here. O'Shea Mullen, I think in this occasion, is following Miller. He needs to be the defender that communicates and looks over to see Petrarca is now forward. And what do I do with Miller? Primarily you want to hand it over, but right now they've got a +1 ahead of the ball. Now, is that risky? Yes, because Geelong have a +1 in and around the ball, but as they did on a lot of occasions on Friday night, they were fierce around the contest and had the ability to turn the ball over, which meant that their advantage forward really came into play. And even that the boundary throw in on the right-hand side that Brownie showed, Miller came right up to the stoppage. So I think the question to come for sides that play Gold Coast is, do we allow them to have one extra at the stoppage, provide a little bit more defensive stability, or do we go all the way up, hope that our pressure and our tackle sticks, and then we can try and win the ball back there? Because what I think the Gold Coast forwards also did is they separated really well. So you see when Petrarca bursts through, there is just so much space and so many options for them to use.
So Dustin Martin played a similar role for you. Was there an element of rolling the dice of getting that +1 forward through your era?
I think you've also got to think about where's the value. A player forward of the ball in a 5v6 or another player at the stoppage, so Geelong having the extra player at the stoppage in what is maybe a 7v8. So that player gets soaked up in the contest, and the value of Christian Petrarca, or it was Dustin Martin, being able to get forward there gives you a player ahead of the ball in what is a lot more of an uncontested possession. So that is the Damien Hardwick.
We would love that. You used to say that to us all the time, didn't you?
What's that?
What's the value of the extra number?
Well, we often talk about, 2 will beat 1, 3 will beat 2, 4 will beat 3, but when you get 5 versus 6, then it's a bit like the sixth person might not be much advantage, and that's where you're talking about getting Petrarca as the sixth person in a congestion, get out in a bit of space, let the other five fight it up. But as you pointed out, if they win the stop, Geelong win the stoppage, then they've probably got more time to go forward. So it is a matter of you've still got to win to get advantage of that.
It's a matter of numbers, and it was numbers on Sunday night. We've been crying out for opening round footy here in Melbourne. We got it, and we got an absolute showdown, potentially the first and second best players in the competition. Nick Dacos.
Well, not now, but yesterday it was.
And Isaiah Wanganeen Miller. On reflection, on reflection. And I want to get into this battle within the battle yesterday at the Mighty MCG in front of 82,000, and certainly for a lot of St Kilda players, it was the biggest crowd they've played in front of. But Geordie, it was a fascinating battle between these two superstars, and I mean the running capacity of Nick Dacos was on show.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's always been lauded for running, and a lot of it was certainly that forward run. But what I loved about the way that he played the game. I just have this vision of when Collingwood played last year, they went long to the centre square a lot, and it was really predictable and probably didn't allow the players to use their creativity. I think what I saw on the weekend, certainly with Nick, was his ability to use his creativity and find options further ahead, which then meant that Collingwood was able to keep the ball. But he just looked energised. You know, when you've got a player of his level of skill, to give him the licence to go and play and not be as predictable as some of his teammates need to be, for me, that was the thing that stood out.
So has he got licence or has the whole team changed?
I think there's maybe there's been a shift in mindset to allow the players a little bit more freedom and not as structured offensively.
Well, I think if they're prepared to defend with ball in hand, and they did do that, they hatched it, they moved it, St Kilda collapsed a little bit, and Collingwood took advantage of that, 140 uncontested marks. But some of the things you see Nick do, it's with a knowledge of the team structure and shape anywhere. Like he could go down the line, he could go through the middle, drive his legs, be under pressure and then go long and wide, as we saw with one of those kicks. I think he's just got high footy IQ to match with that incredible technical skill.
Yeah.
So with the skill,
and
the run,
he's got the skill, he's got the thinking, and he's got the run. I can't think of a player who's as quick. Like he's so quick, he can drop off the chaser, right? But he runs so long. The GPS sort of, which all players carry, they're almost like a state secret, aren't they, Bucks?
We're debunking it here, Lee. You can see the number.
But you can see your eyes tell you how quick. There's just a couple of examples. But he's doing this constantly, where he takes off from where the ball is and he'll end up like 80 metres away, and there might have had a couple of disposals in between. I would love to see his GPS for his high-speed running. It must be enormous. And I say, compared to anyone else in the competition.
I remember Ben Cousins was a hard runner, but not.
Did he have to turn a foot?
This is the defensive side.
That's right.
It's amazing his run.
So this is the defensive side. So you've said the offensive side where he gets on the spread. So you know, if you don't watch him closely, you'd be like, oh, that's all. But his defensive running is certainly.
They were both
well.
gassed for the next 4 minutes. Nick, obviously, and that was, I think it was late in the second, I think.
That last bit, when he ran back.
But so he did that defensive work, and Liam Ryan's running forward, but they both were, they were gassed walking around for the next 2 or 3 minutes. So you need your chance to recover, especially when you're running.
Did you feel that Ross Lyon missed a trick not tagging Nick Dacos? 41 possessions. And Windhager's done the job on him before.
He did it for a little bit.
We've talked about this a lot. Like, as an opposition coach, you think, OK, tag Nick Dacos. Who's athletic enough? And we would have Shaun Hart back in the day, but who's athletic enough to run with him like he runs? And then if you've got an athlete who can run with him, then they'll put him half back, or they'll put him forward, or they'll put him in the centre square, they'll put him out in the wing. There's so many things they can do with him. He I would reckon, from a coaching point of view, would by far be the most difficult player to tag because of the amount of his capabilities, I guess.
My only question with that, would they be better than plus 23 inside 50s if they had tagged him? Because they wouldn't be any better.
No.
They couldn't have done any better than plus 23 inside 50 St Kilda. There's a lot that they would say that they did right, no matter what numbers the opposition got. So I think they'd be saying that there's some stuff that we could have controlled that we didn't finish up, that didn't finish well enough to be able to turn the tables next time.
So let's go to the heir apparent of Nick Dacos, and many thought that would challenge him is
not
Isaiah.
Not an heir apparent today.
No, Isaiah Wanganeen-Miller. Right, let's get to it, Lee. And the fascination has been around the back end of Isaiah last year, and wasn't tagged and was allowed to run around and do his own things, gets the big $2 million contract, is touted as playing as a forward here at the start of this year, and you can see his match rank there. What did you make of Isaiah's game yesterday, Geordie?
Well, clearly good first half and good second. I reckon he was injured because you see him after the match in the rooms with some ice. So there was an injury that happened, but I thought he was good enough. I don't know how much the injury impacted the way that he played in the second half in terms of not being able to run. But that's the incident there.
I think that when we try and compare Nick and Naz, we don't see that type of physicality yet from Nick. Now, he doesn't need to because he's more a ball user, ball distributor, still very contested inside to outside.
The physicality from Naz.
If Nazai's going to end up being a player who wants to line up an opposition player like that and stick a tackle, which he was quite obviously, not obviously affected, but if you've got ice and you're limping around after, you've copped a corky and that was early in the second. So he carried that through the rest of the game. No excuse, because you've got to be able to perform through that. But he's an exquisitely skilled player. But if he's going to bring that sort of physicality, I don't know whether we're judging apples and oranges with those two.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, you'd give him a tick for that, was it? Like
Absolutely.
He just attacked the contest, and he might have hurt himself. But the interesting thing, Perryman took the really body-to-body backpack. Wherever he went, he was just going to be sort of on his back. And can see he might be able to beat Nick in the one-on-one contest if he can stay with him. But no one can stay with him. I don't know whether Nazia's got the run. We'll find out, I guess, to be able to run away from a tagger who wants to play body to body.
What about where we play him? Because I think Ross has been steadfast on playing him forward, and I think Ross might have missed a bit of a trick yesterday. Like, he plays forward for the time forward there. 28% had 2 possessions, and he sort of got lost in the goal square. It wasn't a lead up forward using his pace, which we saw at the back of last year.
Well, I guess that was the point, Lee, without being to the ground. So he's standing deeper and he's sort of out of the game there a little bit.
That's not his role, though, Brad.
Well, that's Sam Darcy.
You see him limping.
Now, it's probably had something to do with that, no doubt about it. But in general, he hasn't proven he's a key forward or can play that. He's taken 1 or 2 marks against Melbourne that day. So you want to see him majority of the time playing midfield, don't you? Where he's more
I think what we saw even last year when he was tagged, it was midfield half-back.
Yeah.
And I think that's his role. I've got no doubt, without any knowledge, but that's the reason probably why he was deep forward, because he could hardly run.
Well, no offence, though. Like with Flanders, Windhager, Garcia, McRae in the middle of the ground, they need speed. They have to have either Sinclair or Wanganeen Miller are playing in the middle there. All the sides are just going to run them off their feet.
Yeah, that's where he plays.
We've seen
63 inside 50.
63 inside 50, but it's not always a reflection, Buxton.
Just the last bit of it, the St Kilda, to tidy up on St Kilda. So they'd be kicking themselves. Last quarter, 44 uncontested marks for Collingwood. So, their game awareness wasn't great late. So that 18 inside 50s last quarter, the 2 goals was the return. Collingwood only kicked 1, but they need to do a better job in that situational awareness of taking the uncontested marks away from Collingwood in their back half. That was unacceptable. So that's up to the players out in the field, the leaders, to be able to communicate that and get that done. I'm pretty sure Ross and the coaching staff would have spoken about those late game situations. So they've got to be much better at that next time that situation arises.
One other aspect from yesterday's game is the second ruck, and 2 ruckmen. Obviously, Tom De Koning was the most talked about player, trading from Carlton to St Kilda on the weekend. And just an interesting stat from the weekend, if you select 2 rucks with inside your 23 players, and there was 3 teams that did it on the weekend, all lost. So I just wonder where Rowan Marshall would sit at the moment. Tom De Koning is a clear number 1. Max King is due back in round 4. They've spoken about playing him forward yesterday, but I mean, I think Geelong missed a trick in not getting him, and this is going to be a big watch over this season about how they use 2 close to being A-grade ruckman, and certainly for the rest of the competition if they do use 2 rucks as well. All right, we're going to go to a quick break. Up next, we're going to chat about the 23rd man, and of course the fallout still being felt from that game in February, AFL Origin.
Placing this up with the 23rd interchange and how it's going to be intriguing. We've got the extra interchange player. Yep. How do you use that?
I'm world famous for being dangerous.
And now Scott Pendlebury, you need him on the interchange bench.
I know. We might hold him back, Lee. We might just let him play sort of late in the first quarter and see how that goes. And
Manfred Bunyip looks like he's pretty keen to get involved in the game now. Stood on the sidelines enough.
Maybe on restricted minutes, but what he offers is pure emotion. Come on in 2 short bursts and really spark them.
Back to Pendlebury, dodging, got away. Lipinski along the line to Pendlebury. He just knew the great ones do. And now Pendlebury, he palms it off. What a team goal that was.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how every side uses that extra man on the bench that they've got. And tonight, our plan was to, especially in the first half, bring me on late in the quarters. And, you always back what the coaches want to do.
Well, they may not have been wearing the sub-vest on the weekend, but they certainly played the role to an absolute T. The impact player, the 23rd man, one of the big rule changes for season 2026, and we've seen it in the first 5 games, and we've seen a few different iterations. And, boys, the 2 iterations that come to mind is Tom Papley, who is coming off a reduced pre-season, so his was certainly probably more from a load point of view, but Scott Pendlebury was a tactical one. Let's talk about Papley early on. And the understanding is that Papley will play this role for the next 2 weeks, as he comes off some calf soreness leading into the season. How did you see Tom Papley's game Bucks on Thursday night? No doubt you're getting ready for Friday night, but you watched Thursday night footy?
Yeah, we're just having a look at it. Obviously, you're 57% on ground and comes on a very different player to a Pendles. So we talk about energy, we talk about pressure, speed around the contest, in particular in the front half. And he's a barometer, isn't he, for the Swans?
He's an energiser,
when he comes on, he does that. Yeah. So, look, what a great role to play. And let's acknowledge it. The reason it's there is because the extra player's been included, but the rotation cap has remained the same. If the rotation cap had have shifted, I don't think we would be seeing it this way. We may well, but I think it's another evolution. We'll see how coaching staffs handle it. But Pendle's 55%. If you extrapolate out those numbers, that's a 47 touch
incredible
game.
First quarter.
Yeah. It's a 47 touch game. 100%. You never play 100%, but what an impact he did have, and was there for the last 15, 20 minutes of the last quarter as well. So that's more about guile, understanding. It was probably a guy that's playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers, and put his teammates into space consistently.
It might be a Pendlebury thing. As much as it's a great idea, I reckon, but you've got to be the type of player. And it might be that Pendlebury is the type of player for that.
Let's talk about the evolution of the bench. And you mentioned that interchange hasn't changed Bucks and the player on the bench has gone up with 5 players. And it's been something that the AFL have toyed with for a period of time now. And it's interesting to see that right now we are sort of revolving back around to where in Lee's times, and I say that with the all greatest respect, Lee, is that players sat on the bench for a long period of time. So how hard is it, Bucks, to find that player with the new rules and try and address that? Do you want to play 2 rucks, or do you play an impact player, or are you bringing someone back from reserved minutes that might get injured?
I think there's a whole raft of reasons why you'll see clubs keep players on reduced minutes. I think, like Croft on Saturday night, I think he had some form of injury, like a cork buttock or something. But in the end, he didn't play much of the last quarter at all. So you've got to see him like a player who's effectively been subbed out. So you've lost him to injury, but you've still got 4 on the bench. So the AFL are looking for integrity, trying to keep things as even as possible, so that when clubs invariably or teams invariably lose players, that the likelihood of winning and losing doesn't blow out too much.
Well, in that same game, McCluggage gets injured early with his calf. So, but arguably, did it have a big impact on it or not? But I think it was minimised by that rotation.
One thing I would say is coaches will enjoy having the space to create, and I think we will see different evolutions.
You mentioned about De Koning and Marshall. I could see that you might just use Marshall off the bench for maybe your 40 minutes. Like De Koning might go forward as well. But in other words, you might be able to get a ruckman to be fresh if it's the right type of ruckman and becomes an extra midfield mover. Yeah, it's really creative.
It's got to be fascinating to see how it plays out over the season. A game that didn't have any interchanges was back on Feb 14th, and the fallout is still happening from State of Origin. And John Ralph joins us from the newsroom with the latest, another injury out of Origin.
Yeah, that's right, Jack. So clubs initially towed the party line on State of Origin because their players loved it, but there's now quite revolt. So Paddy Dangerfield is the latest player who we can trace his calf injury back to that State of Origin game. Spoken to a lot of clubs today. So it's not just the game in mid-February, it's the ballistic nature of it. 3 of those Gold Coast players, 2 of them who came into the squad late. Record GPS data. Now, Sam Taylor is out for potentially a third of the season. GWS is now asking for some kind of compensation in regards to injury allowance on his deal, $400,000 of missed earnings, and also Sam Darcy with those 3 weeks leading into opening round just was off his tucker there with his back injury. So clubs are saying it won't be that we'll pull players out, we'll just make up fanciful excuses if it is that we don't get, of course, whether it's more or less interchange, but certainly less game time. Mark Evans, the CEO of Gold Coast, tells Fox Footy, we love the fact our players were involved. We have to make sure the timing of it and game load is something that would encourage clubs and players to continue to support it. How do we fix this situation?
Well, how do we fix the
How do you
situation,
make it
Lee?
less physically demanding? Yeah, that's.
I think it's game time. Brownie, you went over there. It was
Yeah,
hot.
I called the game, getting off the plane. I couldn't believe how hot it was. It was like a sauna. So very unusual, unique conditions to be playing your first game, our first hot, full-on game in. So I was concerned about that, and then not to manage the game time for that game to go. I know the Wiedering incident happened, but the game went over 140 minutes. So too big of an ask for players. The rotation should definitely have been capped. Ironically, they thought unlimited rotation was going to look after the players, but it didn't. It made it faster.
The other way.
There's certain players that are filthy.
Yeah.
With the game time.
Yeah.
You can
Too
put
much.
that. You can put that on
More
the
than they
table.
were
Absolutely.
20% more than they were supposed to.
Promised a certain amount of game time, and they weren't.
Well, I suppose the issue
is
if the players don't put their hands up, there will be no State of Origin game. So if the players aren't happy, then they need to resolve that really
Is this
quickly.
the case of the players publicly, they get put on the spot saying, yeah, I want to play State of Origin? Because if they get asked the question, do you want to play State of Origin, what else are they going to say? If they say no, because I don't want to put myself in danger, they would get absolutely pillarised.
Well, I think they genuinely wanted to play.
Yeah.
Under the circumstances that they may have been told, and I think game time is the major one, which can be easily rectified.
I was really against it last year when they talked about, but I reckon it's a good time slot. 3 weeks, they've got to make it physically demanding that the players are ready for it. I understand that. But 3 weeks before the main season, minimal impact on... You can get injuries in any game, that in a practice game. So
You're the voice of reason, Lee. I like it.
As a time slot.
I like it. All right, well, let's get on to a game that you did, Geordie, on Saturday. Your old team, Hawthorn, one of your old teams, Hawthorn, came into the season. They'd obviously missed out on Zach Merritt, and I think we all sat a little bit unsure on what Hawthorn were going to be like heading into the season with what has been a torrid injury toll with Will Day. Coming off the game and the way the game was played, where do you see Hawthorn at the moment?
Well, their pre-season form wasn't great, and sometimes it's hard to get a read on what a side is like and what they value and who they play in certain positions. But this was a wake-up call. I mean, the Giants did this to Collingwood last year. They were powerful on their home deck. A little bit like the Gold Coast on Friday night. Their running power, their ground ball game. You know, we saw the numbers there in terms of their ground ball numbers. They're +8 in Q1. They were +16, the Giants, in Q3. But you just see there, it's Whitfield. It's the same names, Whitfield, Ash, Callaghan. For me, it just looked like they had more energy. They had a will to work and to run. And Hawthorn didn't. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a really low running game for Hawthorn. And they just didn't have energy on defence or offence. And they've got 6 days to turn that around because it was a disappointing performance with the outs that the Giants had.
Another disappointing performance from the weekend, Brownie, was Carlton. Much hyped and started the game on fire, but then a third quarter that I think Michael Voss would be looking at going, what the hell happened?
Well, apart from the first 5 minutes, they kicked the first 2 goals of the third quarter. So they looked really good. And then after that, it was an absolute debacle. So system effort, combination of both. Have a look at this for a graphic. Wouldn't see this very often. They conceded 12 goals and only had 11 tackles.
Third highest scoring quarter on record.
Yeah, that might happen in junior footy. But I tell you what, that shouldn't be up in AFL.
Not going to have a lot of tackles if they kick 12 goals against you.
Well, exactly right. But I tell you what, it broke down system and it broke down effort. So they've got a fair bit of work to do. That's unexcusable, no matter how experienced or inexperienced you are.
Well, they get their chance in the traditional season opener versus Richmond on Thursday, and you can catch that from 6:30 live here on Fox Footy with Sarah Jones, Jason Dunstall, David King and Joey Montagna. This game was an interesting one last year that saw some interesting moves as well from the Richmond Tigers. 40 points down and there, man. Seth Campbell with a backflip. Will we see a backflip again Thursday night? Well, welcome back. We're running short on time, so we've got the premium version of the good, the bad and the ugly. Only the real good nuggets get through here. And Brownie, you're going to kick us off with your good.
Yeah, Friday night, take you up to People's First Stadium.
Big game.
The unveiling of Gerard Whateley and the remodelling of Gerard Whateley. I loved it. A bit of Barry White supporting there over the top. But now we just need to get a bit of chest hair and a gold chain. Just take it to the next level, Gerard. Keep going.
LEG, our man. All right, Lethal, you've got a good and a bad.
Well, they're in the same incident. I'd like to pick him out. Bailey Williams. He kicked what could be a goal of the year contender because he held on to the ball. He kept evading tackles.
Individual
they went at him.
brilliance,
He
Lee.
missed an individual brilliance.
Oh.
Kicks the... Oh, beautiful. Kicks the goal. Now, you kick the goal of the year by ignoring your teammates, basically. That is the way you do it.
Yes.
So what he did is the bad. He just ignored his teammaants.
Well, how many?
So there's always good and bad. About 6 times. Let's have a look at
the
it.
goalie. It's goal of the year.
No, he's trying. He's about to be tackled. He could have flicked it on there. He could have flicked it on inside here. What he's kept going to West.
Number 5's nowhere.
Anyway, I'm half joking about it, but it's true. If you want to win goal of the year, you've just got to burn a few teammates on the way through.
Just hold on.
Is it Rich?
I'm just getting word from upstairs. Just want to take you back to 1979.
Oh, black and white pictures?
Goal of the year. Let's count it.
Don't. Oh. Where are the numbers?
U-turn.
The numbers on the bloke's head. Don't.
Burn 2.
Don't tell me.
Burn 3.
Burn 2. Burn 6.
There was 8 blokes on Lee.
I know from personal experience, you've got to burn your teammates to get goal of the year. That's true.
Very good, very good. Now, did that win goal of the year?
I won a red RX-7 Mazda.
Oh, nice.
How long did you get?
That was a good card back in the
Get around in
day.
that for?
Eh?
How long did you get around in that for?
Oh, a few years, yeah.
Was it one of the wind-up ones? Whatever.
Can't disrespect.
Sorry, Lee. Sorry.
Sorry.
Well, they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and that was an imitation of your great goal there, an imitation of AFL 360, NRL 360, Cricket 360. We now have Motor Racing 360. You can catch it on 5:06 at 7:30pm on Wednesdays with Jess Yates and Mark Scaife.
You're not alive until you start kicking when the realness. Celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should.
Welcome back to On the Couch. It is time to sing the praises, and boys, we are singing the praises of Greg Swan and the AFL. First and foremost, the rule changes have had a great impact on the game in the first 5 rounds.
What do you need, tickets or something?
Love tickets to the footy, but we've seen Greg Swan out and about. He came into Fox, and it's good to have good footy people in those positions there. And also the growth of the game. We know that the market above the Murray is a big market, and they've been able to get the stars to the competition. Tom Hanks went to the footy on the weekend.
He was there on the weekend.
And there he is celebrating a goal. Favourite Tom Hanks movie, Bucks?
Oh, let's go big 9-year-old in an adult's body. That's what it looked like.
Brownie?
Probably Splash, but probably had more to do with Daryl Hannah as the mermaid. But anyway, it's a good movie, wasn't it?
What about you, Lee? Have you got a favourite?
Forrest Gump, yeah.
Geordie?
Tom Hanks, Toy Story.
Castaway.
I was going to go Toy Story. Yeah. That shows our generation versus the generation over there.
He's had some crackers.
Well, boys, we've got 18 teams to dissect next week. No doubt we'll probably have some of Tom Hanks's movies as well. But enjoy the footy. You finally get to see your team if they weren't a part of opening round. And we'll see you next week live here on the couch.